Today we are going to talk about how silence can help you. And before you proceed, I want you to consider subscribing to this channel so that you may not miss any other interesting story like this. Number one, silence produces new ideas. It is at the time when you are silent in a peaceful environment that your brain is able to meditate and grant you new ideas that are very necessary upon your life. Remember that you cannot have a solution in a noisy environment. You cannot have answers to your life, answers to your needs, answers to critical issues when you are at a noisy place. But when you get into a very peaceful environment where there is no noises, then you get silent at a moment ideas will be born. So if you are considering to have new ideas, or to have solutions, I would like you to go to a peaceful environment and get silence for a while, and then ideas will be born. So remember, silence produces new ideas. You may be able to start a business, you want to do something, you want to have answers to your bosses, answers to regarding issues you're passing through, you want to make a critical move on your life. What is needed is you to go to a peaceful environment and have silence. And when you get silence for a while, new ideas will be born. Number two, silence help you know the answer. Silence will always help you answer. Sometimes we ask critical questions by our friends, employers, bosses. We ask for questions by politicians. We ask for questions by senior people or friends, relationship. And sometimes we don't have a good answer that is going to help us. But let me tell you today, what you need is to have it is to get silence for a while. And when you get silence for a while, have time to rethink, have time to answer. You are likely to have a good answer, other than the person who rush to answer. Some people are very quick to answer every question without taking time to think. But let me tell you the truth, if you can request even that person for a time that you may go and come with a solution, that you may go and come with an answer, it will help you a lot to come with a good answer, other than answering questions without taking time, without taking all the time needed. You answer and maybe you make a mistake. What you need to know is that when you're having a critical questions, sensitive questions, you need to have time of silence, time to meditate, time to think, time to rehearse, time to research, so that you can have a good answer to the person who requires you to provide with solution. So let's note that, and let's get time to answer every questions that is being brought to us. Number three, I want us to look about is silence confuses your enemies. Silence will always confuse your enemies. Our enemies that we deal with in this world are enemies who rush to abuse, rush to criticism, rush to talk ill against us, rush to talk negative against us, fighting against us at all means. But let me tell you the truth, that if you can observe silence, you are likely to confuse that enemy. The enemy may not know your next move, what you are trying to do, what you are planning to do. You have confused the enemy. It is not good to argue with your enemy. It's not good to attack your enemy. It's not good to to have a counter abuse of your enemy. But it's always important to have silence and get out of that scene and have a way forward to solve the issues that may be raised by your enemy. The abuse, the confrontations, they are not necessary. What you need is silence. And when you get into a silence mood, you don't answer back, you don't abuse back, you don't revenge. Your enemy is likely to get confused, and you are likely to win the battle. So observe silence. Silence is a key tool. As you are going to continue to see, it's a very key tool. And when you have silence in your life, when you know when to apply silence, you are likely to go far. You are likely to to become a man of understanding, a man of wisdom, and you are likely to move at a higher level. Silence is a good tool to confuse a fool. Sometimes when we argue with fools, when you argue with fools, you are likely, nobody is likely to know who is a fool. There's such stickers that are given out that when you argue a fool, no one can detect who is a fool and who is not a fool. So I want you to advise you today that when you encounter a fool who argue with foolish act, who argue with foolish words, who does not apply wisdom, who just talk just for the sake, it is good that you be silent. And when you get silence, wisdom is seen on your end. But when you argue the fool, both of you may likely to be seen as fools, and therefore you cannot be able to separate yourself from the other fool. So it is important to understand that silence is a good tool that will confuse a fool. When you get into a silence mood, when a fool is arguing, when a fool is talking, when you get silence, the fool get confused and leave you, and you're able to overcome those tricky affairs. Silence enhances communication with God. That is number 5. Silence enhances communication with God. Another tool that you're getting in this silence is that silence will always improve uh, communications with God. When we are talking to God in prayer, and when we get into a time of silence, there is a likelihood that God will reach you with His power, with His mighty move. God will talk to you. God will give you the next move you're going to carry on during the prayer. Remember Psalms 37:7. Psalm 37 verse 7 says, "Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for Him." When you are in a prayer and you get a moment of silence, it is a good, important time for you to get closer to God, get connected to God. God speak to you, and then you meditate about God. And in that capacity, God increases you with the power of moving together with Him, of working together with Him. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for Him. When you get still before God, you get silent, meditate about God, meditate about what you have been praying for, what you have been desiring for, and you get to a moment of silence. You give God time, an opportunity for Him to respond to your prayers and act on your behalf. And this help you so much. This will always help you so much. This is a very good tool. Silence before God is a very good tool that help you to have a good relationship between you and God to be enhanced, and you have got a good opportunity to talk to the Father. Silence, number 6, silence help you overcome spiritual and physical battles. I want you to understand again that silence help you overcome spiritual and physical battles. When after you have been fighting, when you have been having spiritual warfare, when you have been having a fight, and then you get at your rest place and get silence and meditate victory, you are likely to have another answer, another solution, another important approaches on how to conquer the enemy. Remember Exodus 14 says, "The Lord will fight for you and you have to be silent." The Lord will fight for you and you will have to be silent. This implies that when you have been having spiritual warfare in prayer, and then you get a few minutes of silence and start imagining on how God will give you victory. Start imagining on how you have conquered the enemy. You have conquered the battle. Having a period of meditating. This is a period where God continue to take over the battle and fight for him. You have fought in a spiritual warfare, you have fought in prayer, then you have a moment of silence and seeing the impact of your prayer. It is a good moment that now that God take over of that opportunity and fight for you. And this is why Exodus 14:14 says, "The Lord will fight for you and you have to be silent." So a moment of silence help you overcome the enemy, help you overcome the devil, help you overcome the enemy that you are facing, whether physical or spiritual. Even when you're having a battle with the physical enemy, you always have to be silent to think on a way to overcome the battle. And when you get to that silence, it will help you a lot. It is during silence that you get impacted on the next move against those that battles against you. So let us understand that silence has a lot of impact in our life. Silence is helpful to us. Silence is a good tool that we have been given to overcome the battles. We don't need to rush to talk Observe silence before you argue, before you respond, before you give out that article, before you give out those report. Observe silence and ask yourself, how will this help me? How will this bring? What will be the result of this? What will be solution of this? What are the impact of this answer? What are impact of this article? What are impact of this response? Observing silence and thinking on how the day was, and thinking on how the day would like to be is very helpful. You are supposed to have a moment of silence each and every day. Early in the morning can be good. Meditate about how the day will be. Meditate about the meeting you're going to carry on. Meditate, have a moment of silence. And when you have a moment of silence, you are going to be impacted with wisdom. Therefore, number 7 is that silence produces wisdom. Silence produces wisdom. People who operate with wisdom, they are not quick to answer. They are not quick to respond. And they take time. And therefore, this is helpful to us today, that we need to understand that when we are silent, when we are in a moment of silence, this is when our mind become sharpened. And when our mind gets sharpened, we acquire wisdom that is necessary to carry on everyday battles, everyday to day challenges. You're able to know what to do and what not to do. Silence is a very good tool that is helpful to you, help to all of us, and it's always good to observe it. Have a peaceful environment. Get to a house, close the door, and have a time to meditate how the day was, to meditate on the next move. Think about that thing that is bothering you and have a moment of silence, and God will provide you with answers to those challenges. As we continue, I want you to summarize on what we have looked about today. We have looked about in a few points that help us to know how silence affect us, or rather how silence help us. And you have seen that number 1, silence produces new ideas. Ideas are born when you observe a moment of silence. Number 2, silence help you to know the answer. When you have a critical answer, when you have difficult questions that are being asked, critical questions that you don't know the good answer, it is good to have time and get into a silent mode. Get to a silence mode and think. And when you get to that silence mode, you are likely to come out with a good answer. Number 3, silence confuses your enemies. You don't need to argue with your enemies. You don't need to fight against your enemies. You don't need to be silent, and your enemies will be confused and run away. Silence also is a good tool that confuses a fool. Do not argue with the fool. Observe a silence, and the fool will get confused. The fool get confused. Number 5, silence enhances communication with God. After prayer, always have a moment of silence so that you improve your communication between you and God, and so that you can give God an opportunity to empower you for what you are prayed for. You can give God opportunity to load you with great ideas, with the blessings, with the victory. And then we have seen that silence help you overcome the battles and the challenges of this world. When you get silence and have a moment of silence and think about the challenges you are fighting, the battles you are fighting in the workplaces, in the ministry, wherever you are, whatever place it is, when you get into silence, it will help you to overcome the battles. And God also intervene and help you. Silence also produces wisdom. It is a moment of silence that you're able to know the best will. It's a moment of silence that God give you knowledge and wisdom required, understanding that is required. And it is the moment of silence that wisdom is born. If you exercise this, you are likely to overcome so many battles. We have finished, and I request you to subscribe. If you have not subscribed to this channel, kindly consider subscribing. Thank you so much.